Hello and welcome to our webinar this evening. Beginning teaching is such an enormously exciting time in our lives. Pre-service teachers daydream about that moment they step into their very own classrooms with their names on the doors and eager young learners all around them. Experienced teachers fondly remember their early careers and reflect on the many learnings they undertook in their first few years in practice. Although exciting and wonderful, beginning teaching can feel at times a little overwhelming. We've brought together a range of amazing teachers for this webinar to share their experiences and some awesome tips for how to succeed from the very start. We're so glad to have you here, and we're thrilled for you to be starting your teaching journey officially. On our panel tonight, we have our friend Kath, who's collected a wealth of knowledge over 3 decades in the classroom. Welcome, Kath.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the privilege of being here.
We've got our beautiful Emma, amazing teacher starter, resource and content producer and teacher. G'day, Emma.
Hello, thank you for having me along.
Thanks for joining. And the beautiful Alexia, a superstar graduate from Perth who has recently lived the beginning teacher experience herself. Thanks for joining, Alexia.
No worries. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're coming to you from all over the country. So thank you for being here and joining us and connecting in with us. It's so lovely to have you with us beginning teachers. Now, I think we'll run it in a way where we have I'll throw out a question, and whoever has an answer from the panel, you are most welcome to jump in because I know that you all have a wealth of information and you'll all know all the answers to all the questions. So we'll see how we go. I thought we might start by talking about student relationships. So we know that building rapport with our students is so fundamental in creating a safe and inclusive learning environment. As teachers starting off in a brand new school, in a brand new school year, and as a new teacher, what are some recommendations you can offer our graduate and beginning teachers for building relationships with their students?
Look, I would say just get to know the kids as kids, find out their interests, do some activities like, what are they called? When
Icebreakers.
icebreakers, that's it. I don't know, mental blank. Icebreaker activities. But I found with my first year of teaching, you get to know your students every day. Like there's always new things to learn about them, and every day they'll bring something different to the table. So I think as long as you have the mindset that you need to continually have get to know your kids,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So always just make it a priority. Check in with how they're feeling, their well-being, because that can change how they're feeling. But yeah, I'd say just always try and get to know them. Ask how their weekend was. But yeah, make it very clear that you genuinely want to get to know them,
Yeah,
because I
fantastic.
love getting to know my kids.
Yes, I can tell you have some great ideas there, and we actually have some interactive icebreaker games on the Teach Starter website. So if teachers are looking for something to download to go in that first week of school and have prepared, because preparation, oh my gosh, is absolutely key in your first
Mhm.
week, whether you're a new teacher or a 20 or 30-year veteran like lovely Kath. Kath, what are your tips for building relationships with students right
Yeah,
from the start?
exactly what Alexia said. Know your students, know what their interests are so that you can have
Mm.
those conversations about whether they like Minecraft or watch a particular show or who's in their family, so that you can have those conversations and provide the time and the opportunity to continue finding out about them. And it'll take time. You won't know everything in that first term, even. But once you get to know them, then you also know their behavior patterns. So you can see a
Mm.
change in behavior and you sort of think, well, okay, I know their home circumstances. They might be carrying some baggage from, before school that changes their behavior. And then you can also incorporate a lot of their interests into activities in the classroom. So
Yeah, right.
and find what interests, they like. What do they like to read? What do they like to eat? And I just
Mm.
think you just got to know your students. And I know one time I had an autistic boy in kindergarten, and it took me probably 2 terms to really know, am I treading on eggshells here and going to cause a meltdown or do something that's going to upset him? And once I knew that, hey, this is just boyish stuff. This is not
Mm.
overload. And we had the best relationship because I knew him. Yeah, and that's what it comes
Mm.
down to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so both of you, I really picked up there on the theme of time. Like, don't rush anything and make sure that
Mhm.
you unravel these little balls of wool, slowly over the year and get to know them and also use their interests to engage them as learners. So that's lovely. Em, did you want to
Yeah.
jump in there as well?
Yeah, well, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth, both of you girls. But to elaborate a little bit, I suppose, begin that journey of getting to know them as soon as you can. So in the first
Mm,
week, in the first, if you've got time, have a little one-on-one, hi, how are you, to each individual student. You know, you might have to catch them out in the playground or just go and have a quick 5-minute chat to them when they're in the middle of an activity in the classroom. Obviously, you can't sit down and have a cup of tea with every student in the first week of school,
mm,
as much as you would love to do that. But just make the first move and make sure that they know that you're approachable and that if they want to reach out and chat to you, that they can.
mm,
And to elaborate a little bit on what Kath said about getting to know their backgrounds and their circumstances at home, if you reach out to their parents early on as well and try to get to know the family a little bit better, that can help you if you've got a student who has something going on at home or comes to school on a particular day behaving a little bit differently, you have a little bit of knowledge behind you to see what might be going on. Yeah.
And
Excellent.
and may I say, also let the children know about you. Like, you don't have to overshare
mm.
everything
Yeah.
that's going on, but to
Yeah.
build trust, comes with relationship. And for them to trust you, they've got to know you as well as.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's such a great
Yeah.
point, Kath. Yeah, that's
But I
fantastic.
might also add, there's some kids who are really shy and take time to actually come out of their shell. So
Yes.
I found with some of my students this year, for some of them, I didn't really get to know them till term 2 or term 3, like I would try. But by the time they opened up and were really truly themselves, it took them that time. But as long as they know that you're like their number one supporter, I always make sure I let my students know at the beginning of the year, we come up with our class rules together, like our expectations, because we're a team. I really emphasize the fact that we're team players. I'm not the teacher telling you what to do just because I want to. While I am the teacher, like, I really want to work together as a team. And I think I told I told my kids I don't like to yell, I don't like to do all of that, and a lot of them actually went home and told their parents that. They tell their parents everything, I find. Like,
Yeah.
I've told them
Mhm.
too much about myself.
Well, there's
And
a beginning
parents tell me
teacher
both.
tip for you. Hold
Yeah.
something back. Make sure you're open with the kids, but just be aware they do talk,
Yeah.
and they
But
definitely do. Yeah.
yeah, but it did make some kids, especially those shy or introverted ones, feel like, okay, this is a safe place. Miss
Mm.
S is someone who is, on my team. They support me, and, I really want them to feel like it's an inclusive, welcoming environment. So I think setting the tone is really important, and eventually those kids will open up when it's right for them. But yeah.
Yeah. Set the tone, set your classroom environment.
Mm,
Yeah.
That's lovely. Yeah, just really building a lot of trust and open communication. So, Alexia, you just mentioned expectation setting.
hmm.
Can we move a little bit across to the behaviour management and classroom organisation considerations that we're going to have
Yep.
at the beginning of the year? Because I think that you hit on something really important there, and it does definitely contribute to the relationships that we build with our students. So I'm going
100%.
to ask you each for your top tips for behaviour management, but through the lens of a beginning teacher, because it's
Mm,
not something that comes naturally. It's definitely a skill, and it's definitely something that you learn on the job, I think,
hmm.
in the classroom. So there's also some amazing literature and some great writers on this topic, which I will link some lovely books about behavior management in the show notes as well. Sorry, show notes. I feel like I'm on a podcast, in the blog post that goes with this webinar. But I might go. So I'm looking at you left to right. I'll go to Emma first this time. So Em, behavior management tips for graduate teachers.
Yeah, well, this is a great segue from the last topic, because relationships,
Mm,
relationships, relationships is how you can be your best teacher and manage the behavior the best way you can in the classroom. Everybody's going to lose their cool at some point, and if you've already got a strong relationship with your students, then you know that you can come to school the next day if perhaps you've had a really tricky day with a particular student, you can approach them and say, hey, let's have a great day today. And yesterday, neither of us were having our best day. And they know that they can trust you and that you're not going to hold a grudge, and make sure that you, start each day afresh. And the more you know your students, the more you can see what's going on behind their behavior, because no student is inherently evil and wants to ruin your day, despite the fact that it might feel like that sometimes. And if you can get to the root of the behavior, if you know the student really well, then it's much easier to kind of steer the behavior in the positive direction they want it to be steered in. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a great tip. Okay, Alexia, top tips for behavior management for a graduate.
Yeah, look, as Emma said, relationships is, I think, the backbone of effective behavior management. I've had 2 classes now, and I've realized that certain behavior management strategies don't work for the same class. You really just have to get to know your kids and see how they best respond. And as well, it depends on the school you're at, because some schools don't support extrinsic motivators like a prize box. So you really need to take that into consideration as well. I find intrinsic motivation, I always start off with that at the beginning of the year, because I don't want my students to rely on extrinsic motivators. But yeah, it's just getting to know the kids, and I think even asking them, like at the beginning of the year. So, if we choose, do not a bad behavior, but choose to do the wrong thing, or we make a mistake, how would you like me to approach that? So actually hear from them what they think is fair. I always, whenever there's a consequence that I followed through with, I ask my students, well, do you think this is fair? We kind of agree on a fair decision. As I said, I'm very much about teamwork with my students, but they always seem to agree that, yes, this is fair, because I know the expectations that we set at the beginning of the year. We've agreed that these would be fair consequences for certain actions. So yeah, and your school might have a whole school behavior management approach as well. So I think take advice from experienced teachers that you're working with as well. I found I've lost my voice a lot of the time this year. So there's some, lots of things that you can learn from managing the class more effectively as a teacher, but that comes with experience, and it won't be the same for every class, which is something important to consider. So I think teaching is a profession where you're constantly learning, and behavior management, you'll always find, new strategies, or strategies that work better for your class. So it's a lot of trial and error, I think, especially at the beginning of the year. And then, yeah, see what works well for your class. That's what I would say.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. And so, Kath, you've seen a lot of classes in your time, and probably a lot of different variations on behaviour styles, and modified your technique year to year, student to student. So what's the best advice you could give a graduate teacher when it comes to behaviour management at the beginning of a new year?
So, as Alexia said, set your expectations at the beginning of the year. So, in that first week, the children need to know what the expectations are, but do it together so that they have ownership. If I own and I've contributed to these expectations, then I'm going to probably be a bit more responsible for them. And it comes down to respect, like respect other people when they're talking, respect other people's belongings, respect other people's personal space, and respect other people's time. The children need to know where their boundaries are. That's when you start seeing behaviours, is when they start pushing that boundary fence and think, well, okay, can I jump this fence? Can I push this a little bit further? And I guess even as me teaching for so many years, I still find I don't really want to offend the children. Like, you still want to be friends with them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I
It's
think
hard, isn't it?
as
Yeah.
an
So
early
hard.
year teacher, you got to find that line between being the teacher. You are not there to be their best friend. Okay, you are the teacher, and you've got a different relationship. Yes, you want to develop respect and good rapport with each other, but that comes from respect, not from being their best friend. So once they know
Definitely.
that boundary, and if they cross that boundary, and if there's misbehavior, quite often, oh look, I've just made a split decision to be stupid, okay, and then I wasn't thinking, or okay, what's going on at home? Okay, I didn't get enough sleep last night, so I come to school, with a bear with a big head sort of thing. So,
Mm.
okay, just again, as you know your children, okay, know the circumstances. All behaviour is communication. It's telling you somewhere, I
Mm.
might be hungry, okay, I might be tired, I don't know how to deal with this person anymore, so I've just let loose on
Mm.
them. So
Yeah.
developing strategies as well as to deal with the social complexity. That's probably one of the hardest things at school, is to navigate the social complexity in the classroom, and I don't get along with that
Mhm.
person, and that person's annoying me. And so I guess
Yep.
a lot of
Mm.
developing social skills, yeah,
Absolutely,
and
especially in
resilience.
those
Definitely.
early years where you worked, Kath. Like, honestly, that is most
Mm,
of the big part of the game is social and emotional development and maturity and learning. And so, yeah, absolutely important to get to, like Emma said, the root of the behavior and really
yes.
Mhm.
investigate with them why they're
Mm.
doing this. So, I thought I might ask you, because we've talked more about the student side of things, but we hear that beginning teachers really thrive when they have great people around them. So
Mm.
if you're going into a new school, what are your tips for making good connections and relationships with other staff at the school? And why is it so important to connect with other teachers as soon as possible?
I think that's support. You can't teach without support. You cannot teach by
Yeah.
yourself. You can go in there and you can try, but it is so hard to just be in that classroom day in, day out if you do not have the support. So I think for myself, my last couple of years of teaching, I found I didn't have that support. And I
Mm.
turned to social media because I got on well with everybody in the school, but no one was interested in trying new things. Or my principal basically would turn up in our classroom maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So she wasn't interested. She
Mm.
just let you go. So I just sort of had to look for other teachers and find other
Mm,
like-minded people. And now, as early
Mhm.
career people, you need to find someone at your school. But I think there's a lot to be said for the amount of support, and it's different for every school. Like, I'm seeing some teachers really struggling because they've actually been bullied. They're being put
mm,
down, and their circumstances is just so negative. Yet another teacher at another school is thriving because they've got support, because they've got a
mm,
principal who understands and will come in
Mhm.
and what do you need now? And they've got teams that will be patient and answer your questions and all of that. So I think there's a lot to be
yeah.
said for our admin, and
Hmm.
support in the school is just, it's so important.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a positive work environment is just so important. Like, I feel very lucky, especially this year. I worked really collaboratively with the Year 4 team. We had our dot. I don't know where you got what you guys call it. It's the yeah, the time relief kind of time where the kids are off at specialists.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah.
In WA we call it dot,
Yes,
DOTT.
I love that, and I have heard that. What does it stand for?
I think it's something other than teaching.
Oh,
Duties other than teaching.
Okay.
okay.
Um,
We have
yeah,
non-contact time in
We have
Queensland.
RFF,
uh-huh.
release from face to face.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's different
Yeah.
everywhere, but we at my school, I'm very lucky that they actually aligned the year level teachers dot together. So we actually would plan the week ahead as a team, and
Mm,
I really found it was amazing to work smarter, not harder. Like, I would plan the
mm,
writing for term 3, and then my colleague would plan maths, and then would share our resources and
mhm,
teach the same thing. So all the kids are exposed to the same opportunities, and it was amazing. Like, for my mental health as well as a
mhm,
grad, it just relieved so much stress. I'm already
Mm,
having to learn how to write reports in the way that this particular school, their requirements. I'm learning how to manage a classroom effectively, all of that stuff. So it's quite chaotic, but I would say, as a grad, go up and introduce yourself to all the staff. Like, everyone knows you're new. So, go up, say, "Hi, I'm Alexia. I'm the new teacher at this school." Really go out of your way to make yourself known, and that's how you start those relationships. But yeah, last year I turned to social media as well. I started my social media when I was working in a rural area, and I was working with lovely people, but it was single stream, and so I really struggled. I have to be honest. I moved into a rural area within 2 weeks, and yeah, I struggled. I found like I was always just treading above the water. So that's why I turned to social media for support, as Kath said. And, I got many ideas. I used TeachStarter 24/7 for, resources and ideas. And, that really, really did help me. And I think, the reason I have my social media is to support
Mm.
teachers, specifically early career teachers, so they don't feel alone or they don't struggle alone. Like, it's okay to feel stressed and overwhelmed, and that's normal,
Mm.
especially at the beginning. And maybe even with more experience, you might face new challenges like working in a different year level or a different school under different leadership. Like, there's always going to be new challenges. So that's why it's so important to have a good support network around you, specifically people who are teachers who just get it. It just makes such a difference. Like, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree completely. Like I was
Mm,
teaching mostly upper primary for my career, and then in my seventh year of teaching, they put me in grade two, which was a big shock, to say the least. I ended up really valuing the differences between the upper kids and the younger kids, but I felt like I was going back to square one. I didn't have any appropriate resources. I didn't have any
Mm.
idea about what their capabilities were already from what they'd brought up from prep or grade one, or sorry, foundation or grade one. So I
mhm,
had to start. And it really, teachers are nurturers. We want to help people. So if you need help, ask for it. And
Yes.
mhm,
teachers will be more than happy to help you. They want help. So reaching
definitely.
out to social media teachers, or going into the staff room on your lunch breaks, and getting to know the staff you work with, and then reaching out to them for help.
Yeah.
Mm,
Ask
Yeah.
questions.
Exactly. Kath,
Yeah,
that's a
definitely
great
Yeah.
so.
point. I think we've all been there. Like, even as experienced teachers, we've all asked the
mm,
questions, and one day you will be the teacher that's helping someone else, and that's just part of that cycle. So it's good to
mm,
remember that it's a safe space, and you will be able to find someone trustworthy to ask anything
mm,
you need, because we've all been in the same situation
Yeah.
yeah.
at some point. I was going to ask you, Alexia, about your rural service just a bit more. If a
Mm.
teacher's in quite a small school and they don't have access to that many people, is there potential to network with other schools in a district? Or like, for example, where you were you the only school in
Mhm.
the area, or were there other people around?
There were other schools in the area. At that time, I was working for a government school, so there were PLs specifically for grad teachers to network and collaborate, and I found that was a great form of support. But yeah, it's more the day-to-day teaching. Like, I walked in, I got off a flight, and then I walked in. I got picked up by the school gardener, went straight to school on a duty, and then I took my kids, and I was like, it was just the most craziest day, and I just didn't know where to start. Like, I had to take them to library. I'm like, where's the library? Like, so
Mm.
Wow.
I was really put into the deep end, but I learned so much from that experience. So I think there's always a silver lining whenever you're feeling like it's really tough. It will pass.
Mm,
um but I think, yeah, in a small rural area, if there's no kind of support system there in terms of collaborating with schools, definitely turn to social media.
hmm
And there's plenty of teachers who've done rural placements. But yeah, no, it was an amazing experience. I learned so much from it, and I don't think I would be the teacher I am today if it weren't for that
Mm.
experience plunging right into the deep end.
Yeah,
I
you
was
sure
faced with,
did.
yeah, I was faced with challenges I never thought I would have to face.
Mm,
Yeah, so it was a lot of new things all at once for me. But I'm glad I did it. So
that's awesome.
whenever, and there's no such thing as asking stupid questions. Like, ask the
Mm.
questions. I've people, my leadership team have always said, I've always felt like I've been annoying asking so many questions. But like, no, we rather you ask the questions and get it right than not. And yeah, it shows initiative as well, I think,
Mm,
when you're asking questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions as a grad or an experienced teacher like you guys when you're, like Em said, that she was put into year two and she kind of
Mm.
felt lost on where to start. So I think
yeah,
that's a normal feeling whenever you're in a new circumstance. So ask all
yeah.
the questions on Instagram, or teachers at your school, wherever it may be. There's lots of outlets now to seek support, which is amazing,
Mm.
which is really good.
Yeah. You're always learning. Like, I
Mm,
think my last 2 years of full-time teaching, I've learnt more than what I had all my previous years.
Mhm.
Tried
Yeah.
new things, learnt new things, and just have a go.
Yep.
Yes.
If you want to have a go at something, do it.
Yep.
You will only do things that you think are right for the students. You're not going to put them in danger or anything else. And if you want to have a go at doing something, go ahead and do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that, Kath. I think that it's never too late to implement new strategies or shake things up a bit. And like we say, as teachers, we're lifelong learners. So asking questions is learning and trying new things is learning. And that's so nice and refreshing to hear that after 30 years in the classroom, you are still taking new initiatives. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and this is a bit of a yucky one on such a positive note there at the end, overwhelm and that sensation that we all have felt. I'm sure graduates, you felt this at uni in your pracs because it's such a common thing. And it's just a sign of being busy, and teachers are always busy and we have to be super flexible. But I want to hear from you guys, our panelists, to help normalize the feeling, because I think that a lot of people get a bit panicked, and it's not a great feeling, but it's definitely something that's manageable. Even after a decade in the classroom, I still felt overwhelmed every single year in weeks 1 and 2. So every time, every start of the year, and I thought, when is this going to stop? I don't think it ever stops because it's so busy, but you learn to manage it differently. And yeah, like I think if I could give myself one piece of advice for first year me, it would just be to breathe through it and prioritize tasks. And that's like really important, because it's a whole 40 weeks of the year that you've got ahead of you. You don't have to do everything in the first 2 weeks. And I was up pasting things to walls and, staying up till midnight planning. It's not necessary. And I think it comes back to that relationship building and the icebreakers and getting to know your kids. Those are the priorities, or they were the priorities for me. What are your tips for helping teachers to not necessarily avoid overwhelm, because I don't think it's always avoidable, but to manage it better?
I think accepting, first off, that you can't do everything. You cannot physically possibly do everything. I remember when I was a teacher, my to-do list never got completed. Like, it was always had something on it. Because you want to keep improving, you want to make a better lesson, you want to put up a new resource, you want to make everything as perfect for your class as you can, but that's not what they need. They need a teacher who shows them the love of learning, and that you can't do all the things all the time, and making sure that when you go home at the end of the day, you still tick off the accomplishments that you had that day, even if you didn't get everything done that you wanted to get done. Reflect on the positives, and just accepting that, I think, is the first step.
That's a great one, Em.
And I think overwhelm also comes from when we compare ourselves to other teachers.
Yeah.
And on social media is that fine edged sword that you can step over and go, right, I need to have that resource. Oh, my classroom needs to look like that. So when you start comparing yourself to others and think that I am not as good a teacher as these other people because look what they've got, that can overwhelm you. Start of the year, if you spend all your time in your holidays just thinking about school, making resources, and not having a holiday, you end up going to school exhausted. And you don't have to have everything up on the walls. You don't have to have your reading groups organised and your maths groups organised. They can come later. Once you know your children, you can develop those groups, but you don't have to have your room all pretty and decorated. Again, that's a personal issue, but it can be developed with the students. So sometimes, I know there's times that I have gone to Kmart and bought things because I've seen them on Instagram and thought, right, that'll be a great activity. And I've, the little light boxes and, there's numerous things I could name that I hardly use.
I'm very guilty of that too.
Don't buy into all the fads. You don't need all of the things.
No, you don't. And just sort of develop. Sometimes you put things up on the walls and the kids have got no idea what they even are. So if you make a poster together, they know they have input, and then it's a tool to help them.
Put things up as you use
and
it.
I'm one that, and I'm one that liked my environment inviting. So don't get me wrong, I had lots of things up there, but you've also got to think, is it distracting? Some children who are very visual can be very distracted with lots of things hanging around all over the place. So you need to sort of, think about where you place your displays and all of that. And as you said, the first couple of weeks, because you're establishing things, school needs, forms filled in, books sorted out, things covered, forms filled in. So the first couple of weeks, then it sort of starts to settle down. And then when it comes to report and assessments, it's like, oh my gosh, I seem to be doing nothing for weeks but doing reports. And a lot of those are done at home because you don't have time at school to do them. So it just sort of ebbs and flows, doesn't it? So you have these moments where, okay, I have to spend more time on school stuff because the workload is just a little bit heavier at the moment. Once I get through this, okay, it eases off again. So
good point, Kath.
Just ride the wave. Sometimes you're on top of the wave, sometimes you're down in the trough.
Accepting that
that's a great analogy.
Accepting that you will be giving up a lot of your time during those busy periods, but still doing what you can to take care of yourself without adding to your overwhelm. So that might mean pre-cooking some really healthy meals on the holidays to put in the freezer, so that during those busy times you still have something nutritious for dinner and you're not grabbing Macca's on the way home from school every day for a week. Or you're setting an alarm that you clock off from schoolwork every night and you don't reply to your email and you don't look at your marking, because work-life balance still needs to happen, and parents will understand that you are not on call 24 hours a day. So you need to put in place those boundaries for yourself, and that's where accepting that you can't do everything comes in. And
recognizing that you are being overwhelmed. And saying,
recognizing,
I am feeling this. Instead of pushing through, I'll be okay. No, you won't be. Okay?
Catch it early.
You'll start not eating properly. You'll start not sleeping, well. You're forgetting to look after yourself, and then you start getting sick, and
definitely
it just all snowballs. But recognize the overwhelm.
And as a graduate, I found that I've almost tried to balance too much. Like, I really want to go to the gym and I really want to eat healthy and I want to feel on top of all my marking, and you can't do it all. You can't, even with putting up displays or getting resources ready, whatever it may be, you just can't do it all, and you need to accept the fact that that's okay. You're not expected to get all of this stuff done within a certain time frame. And I think just it's really important to start setting boundaries early on. I mean, I feel almost hypocritical saying that because I've pushed my boundaries this year as well, and I felt extremely overwhelmed. I've taken on lots of fun things, but I have felt overwhelmed, and that's when you need to stop and recognize that, take a step back. So whether it be taking a step back from social outings, not all, but picking and choosing, like during report time. If I know, okay, I've been invited to, it's usually Christmas festivities at the end of the year, I really do have to pick and choose what I go to, because I know myself, what I can handle. And I'm like, if I want to prioritize my sleep, I need to maybe not go to the gym tonight, or whatever it may be. You just need to listen to your body. And like Kath said, recognize when you're overwhelmed. And that's when you stop and you have to reassess. But as well, just leaning on others for support. I find even just venting and telling someone why I'm feeling overwhelmed really does help, getting it off your chest. And specifically, it's someone with teaching experience. They usually have some really great tips to share. But I would say it can get hard, but that's okay. And you just need to take a step back and figure out your next move.
That's some really positive advice that you all gave just then. I loved how, Kath, you said like the waves and the troughs, and you will get through the difficult parts, and then there'll be a little breather and you'll be okay. You'll get dumped, but then you'll come up for air. And Alexia, I think that it's really great, especially having teacher friends who understand when your report cards don't message me, or we'll have our Christmas party on the last afternoon of school because we can all get together. That's a really great one too.
We used to have report writing parties where we'd all go to someone's house for dinner and order pizza, and all have our little laptops and get the social and the report work done at the same time.
Yeah.
Ah,
And you
that's a
know
great
what?
one,
Well,
Em.
it's
As
good to
well,
brainstorm, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hey, I don't know how to answer this particular comment.
exactly.
Give
yeah.
me some ideas.
Yeah,
I also might want to add in
precisely.
as well with when you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, it's actually okay to take a day off work, like for a mental health day.
Yes.
I
Mm,
used to feel really guilty
Yep.
even wanting to take a day off work. Sometimes it feels more stressful to organize relief because I know what I'm
Mm.
up to, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But you feel so much better for it if you take that day off, if you sleep in a little bit, if you maybe catch up on some work that you want to get done or do no work at all. It's really important that you do maybe take a day off if you really need to. Like I
Mhm.
suffered from
Mm.
tension headaches this year for the first time ever because I was feeling quite stressed. And I ended up taking 3 days off work because I had this headache for like 2 weeks and it wouldn't go away. And I really just had to stop and
mm,
rest. And, my school was very supportive of that. They're very holistic in that way. And I think many people
Mm.
who work in schools are holistic in that because they know what teaching's like. And I don't think they're going to make you feel guilty for taking a well deserved day off if you need that break to reset because
Yep.
you want to be the best version of yourself for the kids as well. So if you're
Mhm.
not, just take a day off, rest, and then
Yeah.
get back into it the next day.
Glad you brought that up because I was,
Mm,
thinking that. Take your sick leave,
yeah.
take your personal
mm,
days. Do not feel guilty.
Mm,
We've all been through the teacher guilt.
mm,
mm-hmm.
Oh no, it's easier if I go in instead of leaving work. That means someone else or the class gets split.
Yeah.
yeah.
So then you feel guilty that someone else is left with the load.
Yeah.
But no,
No,
you've got to recognise when you're
Yeah.
overwhelmed, take your sick leave,
yeah.
and prioritise your
Yeah.
well-being
Yeah.
because no
Definitely.
one else will.
No.
True, so
100%.
true, Kath. Exactly what you
True.
just said
Yeah.
then as well. Like we have to look out for ourselves, and it is nice to think that our colleagues are looking out for us, but we're all super busy. So if you ever notice
Mm,
that a colleague, even if you are a beginning teacher, is struggling, same
mm,
goes. Like reach out, ask if they're okay as well. I think that
mm,
bonds you to your teaching team too, to have
Yeah.
those communications and those
mm,
real honest raw chats early on. Um,
definitely.
Teachers, we have another webinar. I nearly said podcast again. We have another webinar coming up in a few weeks with Holly, and it is about organising your classroom and organisation hacks for your classroom, and how to run it and manage it. So I think that would be a really interesting one for early career teachers to listen to, just some
Mm.
of the ways other teachers have done it or some of the newer ways of
Mm,
doing it, because that can be really integral in how your day runs, how you've set
yeah.
things up. So I think definitely register for that one, teachers, if you are interested in hearing about that. Panelists, I've just got one more question for you, and it's a bit of a quirky one, but I thought we might front run some of the issues that our graduate teachers might have in their very first classroom as they embark on their teaching journey this year. What are some unexpected things that you encountered as a new teacher that you would have never dreamt would happen? I'll give you a minute. Okay, so for
So I'm
me,
just
there was
laughing
a lot of,
because
I know, yeah, we're
yeah.
all thinking, yeah, there was, there's some of
Ooh.
those things. So for me, it was, I was in the early years and I never actually realized all through uni how much parent communication was going to be involved and how important the
Mm.
relationships were with the
Mm,
parents. And I actually had to really assert myself because as a young woman and a young teacher, I wasn't 100% comfortable setting out boundaries and I didn't really know how to
yeah.
do that in an appropriate, caring way. And I was worried I was going to offend them, but they would often come to my classroom right as school was starting and want to
Mm.
chinwag.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out some ways. So one of the things was I had a little bell. My teaching partner told me this one, and that was to ring to tell the children to come and sit down. But actually, the parents kind of took it as a cue as well, but just
Mm,
incidentally. Another one was I would just catch them and say, hey, I'd love to chat more about this. Can we email and have an appointment time and call it an appointment? Because then it's
mm,
more like we are professionals and our time has to
Yeah.
be booked. Whereas I think sometimes it doesn't come across that way because we're available. We're so
yeah.
easily available. We're there.
Yeah.
Why not? um, what are some of your things that you just would not have ever thought about before you got there?
The admin work was such a shock to me.
Mm.
Whether it be, well, the system that we use at my school is called Sector. I don't know if you guys use it, but just entering even like pastoral care notes, if there's an
Mm.
incident, a behavior incident that's happened,
Mm.
entering those takes time. If you have a parent, how to like even um, do a parent interview, like how do I effectively do a parent interview and just those things. There's lots of things that they didn't teach you at uni, which I luckily asked questions and learnt on the job. But the emails, so many emails, I couldn't believe like
Mm.
how, the admin, it's the emails, the pastoral care notes, setting up meetings, the meetings after work, just yeah, a lot. Even behavior management, if there's an incident that happened at lunch, a social incident with your students, I often would have to stop my teaching, get the kids to do something independent so I could sort that out straight as after it had happened. So yeah, there's just, you have to be really flexible, but the admin was the main thing that was a big shocker to me. So setting those boundaries, like not checking your email after 5 p.m. or not responding after 4 or 5 p.m. was, I think, is really important for me. And deleting your emails off your phone. I have my school emails on my phone, but deleting it off, or turning off the notifications so you just don't see it until you choose to.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so I think that's a big tip. But yeah, so I think I wish I just knew about all that stuff before walking into a classroom, because I was very overwhelmed by that. Not so much the teaching. That's what I did on prac, but you don't do any of that stuff on prac. You don't hold parent interviews or meetings. You don't do a parent night at the beginning of the year where you have to talk about your pedagogy and what you're teaching, and none of that stuff.
And
So
field questions from the parents. That was a shock for me, that first parent teacher night. But you know what? Like, I think it's important that we remind our graduate teachers that you've done all the hard work. You know your stuff, you're professionals, and you've got this. It's in there. Don't freak out. Yeah, you're going to be fine. The parents can ask the questions and you will be fine. Like as these things crop up, we just kind of, we just get through it. Kath, so we're going back a little bit now, but what was your shock when you started teaching?
I think, as you said, the parent communication. So, like, I've taught from K to 6, and in the early years, you do have the parents at the door all the time and want to know every little bib and bob sort of information. Oh, here's his lunchbox. Oh, okay, that's all right, sort of thing. They worry so much because you've got them first. It might be their first child to school. They don't know. So you've got to keep them in the loop. When I had year 2 a couple of years ago, I actually used an app called Remind, and I just personally would send out a message. I know Seesaw now has a parent messaging, and I would just sort of send out a general message, hey, tomorrow we're doing this, all right, the next day, so that the parents they want to know. They usually will come to you when they don't know what's going on. So you've got to keep them in the
loop. Get ahead of it.
So, and again, your email times, and you can't be parents will email you at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night.
They do.
Okay, so you need to set your boundaries and say, rightio, I'm not answering that at that time. Or parents will ring up and say, I want to make an appointment. You've got to sort of set those boundaries. And your cohort changes every year. So whatever I did last year with my class, and I had these beautiful routines set up, get a new lot of children, and it just doesn't work because they're a different mix of children. And sometimes what you do in term 1, you'll change in term 2. You'll keep tweaking things. And as Alexia said about being flexible, because how many times do you have something set for the day and admin will come in and say, no, there's a whole school assembly, or no, we're doing a fire drill now. And then half your teaching that you want to do goes out the window because, you've got to make changes. So it always would be great if you had a whole week where you were just in the classroom all day,
no interruptions,
and that you didn't have any interruptions.
That's a teacher's dream.
That's the dream.
Emma, over to you. What do you reckon?
Yeah,
what was your rude shock?
I agree. I had 2 things that were kind of linked to both I've just said, Kat. But firstly, the routine. Make sure that you expect that you won't get to teach everything that you've set for a particular lesson, even lesson by lesson. You've got 10 minutes for your introduction, and then you've 20 minutes for your group work, and then you've got some independent work. If that's the way that you run your lessons, you might not get to your independent work. You might not. You might only get halfway through your group work, and that's okay. You won't get every single lesson done in the time that you've allocated every single time. So that flexibility is really important. And conversely to what people have been, what is true about parents who want to reach out and talk to you, sometimes you have parents who don't reach out to you at all about their child, and you really need to be the advocate for that child and make sure that they have the forms that are being brought in, and you need to call the parents perhaps 5 times to come and have a parent teach interview because you need to talk to them about what's going on at school. Sometimes parents, sadly, either they don't care or they don't prioritize it and they just think that you're going to take care of everything. And so that's not fair on you, but it's not fair on the child either. You need to make sure that you reach out and you talk to parents you might not have heard from, to make sure that they are aware of what's going on in the classroom as well.
Good point. And thank you for showing us that flip side as well, because that's really important. We've actually got a really cool blog on the website called Beginning Teaching What They Didn't Teach You at University, which has a whole heap of tips that you might not be expecting. So I'll link that also in the blog post for our graduate teachers who are here tonight. Thank you so much. That brings our webinar to a close. I really appreciate all of you wonderful panel of teaching professionals for your insights and practical advice that you've given us. Thank you so much, Kath, Alexia, and Emma, for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
And beginning teachers, trust in your training. And as we said before, in your professional capability, you've worked so hard to be here. This is an amazing profession. And we all see you as professionals, and meaning the experienced teachers in your life. We're all here to support you. We want you to feel confident and calm. It's totally normal to not, and we're here. So reach out and ask for help. We all had to do that, as I said before, at some point too. On that, I just wanted to mention that Teach Starter offers beginning and establishing teachers an awesome 50% discount off your membership. So if you're at uni studying education, or if you're in your first year of teaching career, sing out to our customer service team on the website and we will hook you up. There's that's a really great offer just for you guys, and you get everything that the established teachers get just for half the price. So you're most welcome to tell your friends about this too at uni or at school. And again, a huge thank you to our guests. Thank you so much, guests. You're amazing. Great insights.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from everyone today.
Yes,
Isn't
me
that
too.
nice?
Thank
me,
you.
me three.
Great.
It's great
so
to connect.
good.
Yes.
Really good. That connectedness is everything, isn't it, Kat?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, teachers out there, for joining us. We wish you all the best as you embark on this amazing journey. And just know from us to you, you've totally got this. Have a great night, and thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.